This Pueblos Originarios.txt document
Yeah.
about Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo's inauguration. Wow. The first thing that came to mind was cultural earthquake. I mean, this feels huge for Mexico, wouldn't you say?
It's definitely a fascinating moment, that's for sure. And yeah, cultural earthquake, you're onto something there. This goes way beyond just one woman becoming president. It's like, how does Mexico see itself now? And the way indigenous voices are front and center, that's huge.
Okay, so let's break it down. The document describes the inauguration so vividly, and it wasn't just another political event, Ronnie.
Not even close. The thing that really struck me was just how many indigenous groups were represented. We're talking
Yeah.
about people from all over Mexico, Maya, Zapotec, Nahua, so many more. And each group with their own traditions, their own languages, and this is important, their own unique history when it comes to power.
Right, and speaking of traditions, that moment with the Baston de Mando, the staff of command, chills. Seriously, even just reading about it gave me chills. It felt so significant.
Oh, it is. That symbol goes way back in indigenous cultures. It's about how they govern themselves. When they handed over that Baston de Mando to Sheinbaum, it wasn't just symbolic. It was real power, real trust, a recognition of their ancestral forms of leadership. It's a direct line to the past, but it's also a really powerful statement about, like, what role will indigenous communities have in shaping Mexico's future? Sheinbaum seems to be saying they're crucial.
And it wasn't just the Baston de Mando, right? Even before she came out, there were blessings and speeches, all in different indigenous languages. That feels really different, like a deliberate break from the past.
Yeah, for sure. They're acknowledging that Mexico has this incredible linguistic diversity, which is something that's been kind of ignored.
Uh-huh.
But it's bigger than that. It says these languages matter. They deserve to be heard. On a national stage, no less.
Which makes me think it's more than symbolic. Empowering indigenous languages, that could actually make a real difference in people's lives, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's about preserving their cultural identity. It could even mean better schools and more economic opportunities. Recognizing the value of these languages, that's a big part of shaping Mexico's future.
So you have this amazing celebration of indigenous voices, indigenous traditions. But then there's the political reality, right? The Cuarta Transformation, the Fourth Transformation. The listeners who might not be super up to date on Mexican politics, can you explain what that means?
Sure. Think of it this way. The Cuarta Transformation is like this movement that the former president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, started. It's about finally addressing all these deep-rooted problems that have been holding Mexico back. Things like corruption, inequality, all those historical injustices.
Got it. So where does Scheinbaum fit into all of this?
Well, she's been super deliberate about saying, I'm building on the Cuarta Transformation. She even calls her vision the second floor, which is kind of clever when you think about it. I mean, she's continuing what he started, but also taking it further.
Okay, so it's like same team, same fight, but we're taking it up a notch.
And speaking of taking things up a notch, we've got to talk about this 100-point plan of hers. I'm not going to lie, when I saw that, I thought, she's not messing around. Ambitious for sure. But what's really interesting is how she's included all these specific actions for Indigenous and Afro-Mexican communities. Like, one of her big promises is to uphold that new congressional act, the one granting full rights to these communities.
Okay, so this isn't just talk. This is about putting real legal protections in place, making sure there's equality and protection under the law.
Exactly. It's a huge step towards righting those historical wrongs, creating a system that's actually just and fair. And it's not just about legal recognition. She's also talking about economic justice.
Yeah, that part about land rights for indigenous women, that really jumped out at me.
Right. Access to think about it. It's not just owning property. It's about having some economic power, being able to feed your family, preserving your culture. This focus on land rights, this could be a fundamental shift in how Mexico deals with these issues.
There's a theme here, isn't there? It's not enough to just say, yeah, historical injustices happen. It's about taking action, actually righting those wrongs. And it goes beyond land rights. Sheinbaum talks about supporting indigenous languages, cultural heritage, all of it. It's all in there. So we've got this incredible celebration of indigenous voices. We've got the Cuarta Transformation continuing in. But we also have to be real about the challenges Mexico's facing, right? I mean, corruption, economic inequality, drug cartel violence. These aren't small problems. It's a lot, right? You almost think she's walking into a hurricane. But what gets me is she's not backing down at all. Scheinbaum's got this incredibly detailed plan. It's like she's taking these challenges head on.
She's not afraid of setting some serious goals, that's for sure. And that's what makes this whole deep dive so interesting. We're not just talking about big ideas. This is about concrete objectives. Like, look at her approach to science and tech. She wants Mexico to be this innovation powerhouse. But it's not just talk. She's got specific projects lined up.
Yeah, the one that caught my eye was developing a 100% electric car and get this designed and built completely in Mexico, the Litio. What kind of impact could something like that have, realistically?
Well, it's definitely ambitious, no doubt, but it kind of gets at something bigger in her plan, this idea of technological sovereignty. So it's not just about using technology, it's about Mexico being a leader, creating the innovation, and then reaping those benefits, economic, social, you name it. Just imagine a car built specifically for Mexico with Mexican expertise, and it's good for the environment.
It sends a message, doesn't it? It's like she's saying, Mexico's not just following anymore, we're ready to lead. And that energy, that momentum, it's pretty exciting, honestly. But it's not all high-tech stuff, is it?
You got it. Scheinbaum's plan, it recognizes how important a vibrant arts and culture scene is. And not just holding on to the past, but nurturing the artists of tomorrow.
I love that part about having bands and choirs, theater groups in every single public school. What a way to invest in the creative spirit of Mexico. Speaking of investing, her plans for public health, just as ambitious, wouldn't you say?
This is where you really see how committed she is to social justice. We're talking about a total transformation of healthcare, making sure everyone has access to quality care that they can actually afford.
Free medical care and meds for all Mexicans, no matter how much money they make. That's a big promise. Logistically, though, what kind of challenges would something like that face?
Oh, it's a massive undertaking, no question. But what it says is healthcare is a right, not a privilege. So imagine more people getting preventative care, families not going broke over medical bills, and maybe even a healthier, more productive workforce overall.
It's about having a safety net, no matter who you are. And since we're on the topic of safety nets, her plan for affordable housing really stood out to me as well.
That's a huge one, especially these days. Young people, families struggling to make ends meet, finding a decent place to live is so tough. Scheinbaum's talking about building 1 million affordable homes while she's in office. That's a bold response to that crisis.
1 million. But it's not enough just to build them, is it? People need to be able to afford to live in them, too.
Right. That's why she's proposed those rent-to-own programs, especially for young folks, plus low-interest loans for home repairs. These are practical solutions, but they could make a real difference. More Mexicans owning their homes means more families with some stability, some security for the future.
And then there's her focus on women's rights, which is impossible to miss.
This Republic for Women that she talks about, it's pretty remarkable. Creating that Secretariat for Women, a whole government department dedicated to gender equality that sends a strong message.
And she's not stopping there. She's talking about actually changing the laws.
Oh yeah, she's coming at this from every angle. Equal pay, more women in government, cracking down on gender-based violence, better access to health care. It's a complete approach.
It's about making sure that in Mexico, women have the same opportunities as anyone else, and they're safe from discrimination, from violence. But it's bigger than just women. It's about a more just and equitable society for everyone. We've covered a lot of ground already: technology, culture, healthcare, housing, women's rights, and her 100-point plan. It really lays out this whole vision for Mexico: more prosperous, more just, and more sustainable.
And what's striking is how connected all these issues really are. She's approaching governing holistically. It's like she's saying the well-being of the Mexican people depends on progress in all these areas, not just one or two.
It makes me think of something else he keeps talking about: building a rural republic. What does that even look like, especially when it comes to Mexico's farming and rural communities?
One of the big things is food sovereignty. Scheinbaum wants to make sure Mexico can feed itself things like corn, beans, those staple crops. And she wants to support those smaller independent farms.
And then there's that part about creating a national seed company.
Yeah.
Talk about taking control. What are the implications of a move like that?
It's bold, that's for sure. The idea is to rely less on those big foreign corporations and come up with farming practices that are better for the environment. It could be a total game changer for agriculture in Mexico.
It's like she's saying, we're going to feed ourselves, and we're going to do it the right way, good for our people, good for our land. But she's not just focused on growing food, right? There's more to her vision for rural Mexico than that.
You're right. Her plan also addresses the economic realities in rural areas. So things like guaranteed Social Security for farm workers, better access to health care and education, those are all part of it.
It's about making sure those communities don't get left behind as the rest of the country develops.
Exactly. The benefits of a growing economy should reach everyone, no matter where they live.
Okay, so we've got strengthening agriculture, supporting rural communities. But there's another huge part of Scheinbaum's plan that we haven't even touched on yet. Infrastructure.
This is where those big ideas start to take concrete shape. We're talking about a more connected, more prosperous Mexico.
And when I say massive investment in infrastructure, I mean massive, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about everything. Highways, railways, ports, airports, you name it.
And it's not just about building new stuff. It's about updating what's already there, like the national railway system.
Right. Scheinbaum's plan includes expanding those high-speed rail lines so there are more connections between cities, and that could really boost the economy.
And then there's that goal of connecting the Pacific and Atlantic coasts by rail, the interoceanic corridor.
Now, that project that has the potential to be completely transformative. Think about it. Goods flowing freely from coast to coast, lower transportation costs, more international investment, and all the jobs that would create.
It's about making sure Mexico can compete on a global scale.
And it goes beyond just economics. Having better infrastructure means people in those more isolated areas, they'll have better access to healthcare, to education, to economic opportunities.
It's about those connections, right? Connecting communities, reducing that inequality, and creating a more unified Mexico overall.
Exactly. It's about making sure that where you live doesn't limit your opportunities in life.
Okay, we've covered so much ground. Technology, culture, healthcare, housing, women's rights, rural development, infrastructure. Scheinbaum's 100-point plan, it really is this whole vision for a better Mexico for everyone.
And what's so remarkable is how interconnected it all is. It's a completely holistic approach, recognizing that people's well-being depends on progress in all these areas. It's not a piecemeal approach.
But there's still one really crucial aspect of her plan we need to discuss. Her vision for a safe and just republic.
This is where we see how she plans to tackle those big challenges of security, justice reform, and of course, corruption. And it's very clear from the document she's not shying away from them. If anything, she's shining a spotlight on them.
Complex challenges is putting it mildly, really. I mean, it's like she's going toe-to-toe with some of the biggest problems Mexico's ever faced.
But she's ready for the fight. What's interesting to me is she's not just about cracking down. It's more like, what's at the root of all this crime? It's not just about winning a battle. It's about making sure there's a real, lasting peace.
It's like she's saying, look, we can't just arrest our way out of this. We need to create a society where crime doesn't even make sense anymore.
Exactly. Give young people a real shot: education, housing, decent jobs. Address those underlying issues that can lead to crime in the first place.
And there was that program you mentioned, Jóvenes Uniendo a la Nación, Youth Uniting the Nation. Sounds like that's all about giving those opportunities to young people, steering them away from that life.
It's like she's saying, if you invest in young people, you're investing in the future of Mexico. But it's not just social programs either. Scheinbaum's also talking about making law enforcement better, making the justice system work, but with a focus on human rights, doing it the right way.
So yeah, working smarter, not just harder.
Exactly. And a big part of that is getting everyone on the same page, the different levels of government, the police, the courts. No more working in silos, everyone working together to solve these problems.
And we can't forget about corruption, right? That's been a huge problem within Mexico's justice system. And Scheinbaum's really clear about this. It's not just about catching a few bad apples. It's about making sure the system itself doesn't allow for that kind of corruption to take root.
Transparency, accountability, those are key. And everyone needs to be following the rule of law from top to bottom.
It's a big vision, that's for sure. And as we wrap up this deep dive into Scheinbaum's inauguration, her 100-point plan, I got to say, I'm feeling pretty hopeful. There's this sense of possibility, and it's kind of contagious.
I know what you mean. It's one thing to see this historic moment, the first female president of Mexico, but when it comes with this bold vision for the future, that's something else. And this isn't just about Mexico either. This is something that could resonate around the world.
Social justice, economic equality, protecting the environment, technological innovation. Those are challenges everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Scheinbaum's almost offering up a model for how to tackle these huge issues.
Exactly. She's showing the world that progress is possible, even when you're dealing with some really deep-rooted problems.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. We've just scratched the surface of Scheinbaum's vision for Mexico, so we encourage you to keep digging into pueblosoriginarios.txt. The future of Mexico, just like the future of our planet, it's a story that's still being written. So keep learning, keep asking those tough questions, and most importantly, make your voice heard.